Hey everybody, happy October. Which I'm glad about. But I am here now for the next few months, so I probably will see you again from this location. We're here for my mom and some medical procedures that she hopefully will get soon. As always, you can find us normally on the last Wednesday of every month at 5 o'clock Pacific right here on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. Today we have a bunch of news and updates, so stay put, don't go anywhere, but please do share the link to this live stream using the hashtag #MoveToAmend and hashtag #LiveReport for a chance to win a free t-shirt at the end of the report. We always give out prizes, and we're going to be giving out a couple Move to Amend t-shirts to a Facebook person who helps us spread the word and a Twitter person who helps us spread the word. So share this live feed with the hashtag Move to Amend in either Twitter or Facebook, and at the end we'll pick one winner from each platform. Feel free to ask me your questions anytime. I'll answer them at the end. And even if you're not tuning in live, you can still ask us your questions and we will make sure that we get back to you as soon as we can. So first up is corporate rule news. Keep on with it and we'll do our best to appreciate patience. So 1548 Amy Coney Barrett. GOP senators that voted for her represent 11 million fewer Americans than their Democratic counterparts. And the president that lost the popular vote by 3 million votes got his third Supreme Court justice. Even more disgusting are all the reasons why Trump and the Republican Party might have pushed the confirmation hearing. They're trying to consolidate power of three branches of government. They have the White House, the Senate, and now a very clear majority under an uber conservative court. It's really important to understand the context of the Barrett confirmation. So we're going to go back and talk about the judiciary and the corporate takeover of not just the Supreme Court, but the judiciary branch as a whole. So the likelihood here is that we're going to see a backward slide on social issues that are definitely going to harm people of color, women, LGBTQ folks, immigrants, and others. The other purpose, though, of the Barrett confirmation is about protecting and expanding power and the two main that they serve for rich and large corporations. Barrett now solidifies a conservative court that has ruled in favor of the rich and corporations in four major categories for the last 10+ years. Being voter suppression, so mail-outs rejected, baseless accusations of fraudulent voters, closing polling places in minority communities, et cetera, et cetera. Trump is already employing really out in the open tactics, and it's going to get worse. He recently said that he doesn't believe that our laws bind him to counting all the votes on election day or in the election period. And then the other categories of solidifying power with the courts are opening the floodgates to more money in politics and dark money, jury nullification, forced arbitration, and prohibition of class action suits, because there's nothing more annoying to big interest powers than civil juries, and they can always just buy politicians and judges at this point, but they can't buy juries, and so they've undermined the power of juries over the last decade, and deregulating everything and anything, especially if it will help corporations make big profits. The confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett is the latest and most prized trophy for those behind-the-scenes forces that are responsible for pouring obscene amounts of dark money into Barrett's nomination, as well as the nomination of Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. Under the Trump administration, the Mitch McConnell-led Senate has produced few significant legislative accomplishments, but instead they've been focusing most of their energy on packing the judiciary with far-right extremists who then enjoy lifetime tenure as federal judges. Working hand in hand with the administration and anonymously funded special interest groups, the Senate has confirmed 200 new life-tenured federal judges to aggressively remake the federal courts and in effect rewrite the Constitution in a number of ways. Most of these judges were chosen not for their qualifications or experience, which actually are often lacking, but for their demonstrated allegiance to pro-corporate and socially conservative goals. These judges, or we could actually just call them politicians in robes, have expanded the rights of corporations to the Constitution to local, state, and federal laws, determining their access. The court has also provided the rights of union work, that environmental protections, and long-standing voting rights laws, and make it harder for the person to keep financial institutions accountable when they are ripped off. They've also empowered CEOs and giant corporations and reduced the power of voters and average citizens. And now the court is preparing to hear cases that could also get women's right to choose over our own bodies, healthcare access, and even potentially destroying long-established American institutions like Social Security, Medicare, and unemployment insurance. And it needs to be said that the Democratic Party leadership has let this happen, and in some cases even helped. Most of Trump's judicial nominees sailed by the Democrats with support, and even though there was much blustering when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, in the end, the Democratic Party did absolutely nothing to halt the appointment of Coney Barrett, even though if the tables had been turned, Republicans would have pulled out all the stops to delay the process until after the election. But Democrats love to pay lip service to standing up and then standing aside as corporate interests dominate our government. So back before, did I say a thumb on the scale? Because clearly it's more like they're preparing to use this majority, this right-wing majority, like a sledgehammer. And just this past Monday, the Supreme Court delivered a victory for the Republican Party by barring the crucial battleground state of Wisconsin from extending its election day deadline for the arrival of absentee ballots amid a pandemic, with Justice Brett Kavanaugh issuing an ominous concurring opinion that echoes Trump's false narrative on mail-in voting. The 5-3 decision along party lines, with the court's 5 conservatives in the majority, blocked a request by voting rights groups and Wisconsin Democrats to revive a federal judge's ruling from last month that would have allowed mail-in ballots to be counted if postmarked by Election Day and received by November 9th, which is a 6-day extension of the current deadline of November 3rd. At least 18 states and the District of Columbia count ballots that arrive after Election Day that are postmarked by Election Day. This is not a big deal, and it's genuinely alarming that the justices cast aspersions on late arriving ballots. And in these states that allow this already, there's no result to flip because there is no result to overturn until all valid ballots are cast, which is as it should be. And I don't know about you, but I remember George W. Bush's 2000 election legal team, which included newly confirmed Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and Kavanaugh and Roberts. And they argued during that contested election that ballots arriving late and without postmarks, which were thought to benefit Bush, must be counted in Florida. So like the Supreme Court so frequently does, just flip it around when the politics are on the other side. Whatever the reasons behind Kavanaugh's performance on Monday, he has given the nation another legitimate reason to fear that this election may end up with a Bush v. Gore-like disaster for American democracy, but potentially even worse than the original. And to make things worse, just minutes after the Supreme Court issued its ruling on Monday night, Trump falsely tweeted that there are, quote, big problems and discrepancies with mail-in ballots of the United States, which is absolutely not true. What is worrisome is that with a captured judiciary, Trump and the Republican Party could yet again steal the presidency without any fear of real consequences, at least not through the political system. And I'm sure you're asking a little bit of like, how did we get here and what can we do? So we're going to back up a little bit and talk about how we got here. Republicans have spent the last 50 years planning to pack our judicial system with far-right activist judges and to influence it with right-wing ideology. From the Powell memo of the 1970s, which actually Powell was a Democrat-appointed Supreme Court justice, to the current Trump era, there has been a consistent, relentless, and well-funded effort to pack the court and change the politics through the judiciary. The project has created an entire apparatus of front groups focused on influencing the courts and controlling judicial selection. We have to step back and look at the pattern of decisions throughout Chief Justice Roberts' tenure. It's not just the worst, most notorious decisions. The current Supreme Court has run up a record of 80 decisions, all of which share these characteristics. They were decided 5-4, even though larger majorities protect the credibility and standing of the court. They were decided 5-4 on a partisan basis with no Democratic appointee joining the bare majority, a divide that also undermines long-term confidence in the court as an institution. But it doesn't seem like the Roberts Five seem to mind that. They were civil cases in which big Republican donor interests were plainly implicated. And they were decided 80-0 in favor of big Republican donor interests, a pattern that lawyers could easily bring before a jury as evidence of a bias in a discrimination case. So we need to follow the money. The extent of the GOP's dark money court packing network is really astounding. Hundreds of millions of dollars of corporate and special interest money flows into efforts to get the desired rulings from the federal courts. This money flows into groups at the center of the judicial selection effort, the Federalist Society. It funds the entity that runs political campaigns for nominees' confirmations, like the Judicial Crisis Network. It funds litigation groups like the Pacific Legal Foundation that bring strategically selected cases to the Supreme Court. It funds an array of coordinated amicus curiae groups that file in flotillas before the court, and it funds political power hitters like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It also funds ideological hothouses like GMU's Mercatus Center, where right-wing theories are incubated and propagated, and kind of the strategy behind all of this is concocted. So who's behind this effort? Who are the big funders of the judge pickers? Who is behind the amicus briefs? Who funds the litigation groups and the political campaigns for judicial nominees? Is it likely that the big donors are all the same and funding all of these pieces? Absolutely. All signs indicate yes. We have to look around and consider why so much money is dedicated to pursuing this scheme and why it mattered enough to the people behind it to invest decades worth of effort, but also finances. So we have to step back and understand what's the goal. Packing courts with narrow-minded activist judges who will distort our Constitution has a purpose. The purpose is that the judges will reliably vote in favor of the interests of the extremely wealthy, gut vital public safety and environmental protections, shield predatory corporations from accountability, disable the civil jury, dismantle civil rights, erode the separation of church and state, eliminate reproductive rights, rig democratic institutions in favor of conservative elites' interests, and impose regressive policies that are actually very deeply unpopular with the American people, so that even rank-and-file Republicans won't vote for them in Congress. And Republicans in Congress won't vote for them. They can take care of it through the judiciary. Americans are already seeing the devastating results of this transformation, and it's only just started to get underway. We've also increasingly come to understand that the culture of corruption is undermining our politics, yet too few people realize these same corrupting forces have already effectively captured our courts, and we have to work to change that. We need to shed light on the corruption and conflicts of interest that are now rampant around Trump's judiciary. We need to document the real-world impact of the court's increasingly activist decisions, and we need to support legislative reforms to clean up this mess. And if Democrats take power, and it looks like that's possible with this election, we're going to have to push them very hard to reverse America's current slide towards authoritarianism and billionaire rule. And if they refuse, because let's be honest, they have yet to put up a meaningful fight to any of this, we have to replace them too. Billionaires have put hundreds of millions of dollars into a multi-decade effort to capture the judiciary, and even though they think they've accomplished their mission, we have to fight back, because at the end of the day, we outnumber them and we have to start to act like it. So we need to get ready for a lot of what was wanted has already been put in place, even if Trump is out. In response to this power grab from the hungry power elite, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had just 3 initial words to say: expand the court. AOC's sentiment expressed in a tweet, and it quickly spread. Republicans do this because they don't believe Democrats have the stones to play hardball like they do. The New York Democrats subsequently added, and for a long time they've been correct. But do not let them bully the public into thinking their bulldozing is normal, but a response isn't. There is a legal process for expansion. Shortly after AOC's tweet, Progressive Squad member, and both of these folks are co-sponsors of the We the People Amendment, Ilhan Omar reshared the message, and she added, remember that Republicans have lost 6 of the 7 popular votes, but they have appointed 6 of the last 9 justices. By expanding the court, we fix this broken system and have the court better represent the values of the American people. And they're not alone. Senator Warren also expressed her support for the idea. Every option needs to be on the table. Every option to expand our democracy. Every option to ensure that Americans have equal justice in our courts and representation in our institutions. Every option needs to be on the table, including some fundamental changes to our Constitution. It is time for big changes, because this situation of Republicans steamrolling and Democrats giving lip service to fighting back, but not actually doing it, is costing us everything that we believe in. Even other less progressive Democratic members entertained the idea of expanding the court recently and went so far as warning Republicans that they won't be able to call foul play in a hypothetical future where Democrats do such a thing. So yeah, there is a possibility. Perhaps it's our only one as it relates to the court, even though it might sound far-fetched. But the truth is the Supreme Court has actually been expanded many times before. Congress decides how many people are on the Supreme Court and has changed that number several times, specifically because of political overreach of the presidency. And to be honest, after seeing what can be accomplished when people come together, and right now I'm talking about Chile, where an overwhelming majority, 78%, voted this week in support of rewriting Chile's constitution, which dates back to the military rule of General Augusto Pinochet installed by the US government. I remain a bit hopeful that we can collectively fix this crisis. There are, in fact, many things that we as Americans can learn from Chile. Their victory did not come easily or swiftly, and in fact, it isn't all the way realized yet. The modern Chilean democracy movement was initially sparked by groups of students jumping subway turnstiles to protest a small hike in fares about a year ago, but it grew into a nationwide uprising of millions of Chileans who are threatening to bring down the current conservative and unpopular President Sebastián Piñera's government. So maybe there's hope for America too. We're actually going to be talking this Friday on Making Sense, which is a program that we broadcast live on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube every Friday at noon Pacific, just kind of making sense of the week. And this Friday, we will be joined by Natalie Smith, who's co-host of Superstructure podcast and is an American residing in Santiago, Chile right now. Alfonso's going to link a link to her podcast. So you can find out from someone on the ground who has an understanding of the politics in Chile and the connections to, our government's responsibility for what the situation is in Chile. So I hope you'll tune in to Making Sense on Friday. So that was a lot about the judiciary, but this is really important. And I hope that was helpful. And we look forward to working with you on this aspect of things, no matter what happens. Company, actually valued as $5 million. Proves that donating to political campaigns is really the best investment ever. In 2016, Joy donated $1.1 million to Donald Trump's campaign, and he has been a controversial figure ever since, but he has seen his own personal result of that investment in a politician. You're listening to Move to Amend's monthly live report. Kaitlin Sopoci-Belknap, Move to Amend's national director. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. Ask me your questions anytime, and I will respond to them at the end. If you're listening to the broadcast after the fact, not live, you can still ask your questions in the comments, and we will make sure to respond to you there. And remember, we need your help spreading the word, so please retweet or share this broadcast right now. And one person who does that using the hashtag #MoveToAmend will win a t-shirt. One person from Facebook and one person from Twitter. At the end, I'll announce the winners. Next up is updates from the Move to Amend campaign. So first of all, happy birthday to us. Move to Amend was launched at a meeting in a living room of a handful of folks. There were about 12 of us there. It took place on 2011 years ago. So our 11 years of waiting for the weekly amendment. For that meeting, we obviously did not have our amendment written. We didn't even know what the ruling would be in the Citizens United, but we had a feeling it wasn't going to be good. And we thought that it would be a great way to help people understand how horrible it is for democracy when corporations have constitutional rights and money is speech. Unfortunately, we were extremely right, and so we launched Move to Amend publicly on the Citizens United ruling, which ended up being January 20th, 2010. So we've been working publicly for the last 10 years, almost 11, on our amendment. And we, at this point, have hundreds of thousands of people we have engaged. We've done a tremendous amount of education all over the country. We have passed hundreds of resolutions and ballot initiatives all over the country calling for the amendment. And of course, our amendment has been introduced in Congress 4 times. Our latest amendment is HJR 48, and we have 74 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives, and we're working to grow that number. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So thank you to all of you who have been doing the work with Move to Amend for the last 11 years, and we look forward to working with you until this fight is finished and we win the We the People amendment and go on to win other constitutional reforms to make democracy a reality in the United States for everyone for the first time ever. Move to Amend's Law and Research Committee published a press release that we got picked up in a few different places. It was called Corporate Constitutional Rights Should Be the Focus of the Last Presidential Debate. And Alfonso will link to that. It also links to a number of pieces that we've put together, helping people understand how the issue is not just money in politics and corporations' use of the First Amendment to spend money in elections. That is only the tip of the iceberg of the problem. The issue goes well beyond that to other constitutional rights that corporations have been able to enjoy because of Supreme Court rulings, not because of any amendments to the actual Constitution or work done in Congress, but simply because of the judiciary. And so even though I talked in the last segment about the last 10 years of corruption of the court, we would make the argument that it goes way back and there are deep structural problems with the Supreme Court as an institution. It has been the most effective branch of government for expanding corporate power and the power of the minority over the majority, the wealthy minority over the majority. So I hope you'll take a look at that press release. And we also wanted to give a shout out to our Interfaith Caucus that has been doing good work and is looking to potentially expand to become our environmental caucus. But they did a presentation, which I was happy to join them for earlier this month, The Immorality of the Climate Crisis and Corporate Rule. And I want to thank the other presenters who were there with me, Shannon Biggs, co-founder of Movement Rights, and Reverend Dr. Colin Bosson, who's the senior minister for the First Unitarian Union. And he's Constitution. And it was actually it went really well. It was really exciting. And this 29 People's Movement Assembly that held is intended to be a catalyst of something big. We need you to step with us to find out about our efforts to build a new program that we're calling Toward a People's Constitution. The People Amendment, but beyond that, what are some of the other changes? In fact, what would it look like if we actually had a constitution that was written with the intention of having our human rights, the rights of the environment, and the needs of our communities to collectively be addressed and expanded, rather than our current constitution, which is written for the interests of the people who wrote it, which was about property holders, which was about expanding the rights of men, slaveholders. And we actually looked at the fact that the people who wrote our Constitution could not have in any way conceived of the world that we are in now. So even if we give them all of the charity in the world, we have to recognize that our current Constitution is a lot older than most of the effective democratic constitutions from other countries in the world. It's a lot shorter, and it addresses a lot less human rights. And so all of that was talked about and where we would want to go in this PMA, People's Movement Assembly, that we held last weekend. I want to give a shout out to my colleagues who organized it, especially Jessica Munger, but Jason and Alfonso for running the tech, Greg and our partners at the Pachamama Alliance and Liberty Tree and Radical Guide for helping us to put it on. And we're really looking forward to doing more of that. And so please sign up if you want to stay involved and learn more about what we already have done in this arena and where we want to go next. This Friday, we're holding a movie screening called Fright Night, Racism, Corporate Power, and Other Horrors. And we're going to be showing They Live and a segment from Tales from the Hood 2. So this will be a new thing for us. We hope you can join us. We have a limit on how many people can attend. And if it goes well, we might do more movie showings like this. So join us this Friday for kind of a Halloween themed movie night. And just, Alfonso, as you're copying that, I just want to flag that it's called Fright Night, not Fight Night. So make sure you tweak it before you copy and paste that. Also this Friday, I hope you'll join us for Making Sense. I already mentioned that we're going to have a special guest, Natalie Smith, who's co-host of Superstructure Podcast and an American residing in Santiago, Chile. And then my colleagues Greg and Shelly will also be on. And so we'll talk about the news from the week, but we'll focus a lot on what is going on in Chile. And Natalie will give us perspective from someone on the ground who is part of this revolutionary moment. And then the following week, after Election Day, you can join me and Keon to talk about whatever the hell goes down on election night in our post-election redux. I don't know what that'll look like, but we will be there on Friday to debrief it and discuss it with you. Pledge to Amend campaign. The election is just days away. And it's really important as you're casting your ballot to make sure to remember to look and see which candidates that are running on your ballot have taken the pledge to amend and committed to use their office to support the movement to amend the Constitution to end corporate personhood and get money out of politics. So take a look at the full list of candidates who have taken that pledge. We also have some on our page who have explicitly refused to take it, so you can know that too. And make sure you look at the full list before you cast your vote. Alfonso will share the link with you. Our last co-sponsor, so now we're switching over to the We the People Amendment in the House of Representatives, House Joint Resolution 48. The latest co-sponsor to come on was back in August, and it was Representative Jerry McNerney for California District 9. We're just one co-sponsor away from our 2020 goal of 75 co-sponsors. So we need your help to move that forward. It's been a weird year. It's not been a great year for lobbying people in Congress on issues that are systemic and, not immediate pandemic related or police brutality related. Some of these really important issues that have exploded in our political conversations. But underneath so much of everything else is corporate power and money in politics. And so the We the People Amendment is actually no less fundamental, no less critical than it ever has been. And we need your help to remember that. I know it's been also an election year, and a lot of people have been focused on that, but we don't want to slip in our progress in moving this amendment forward. So please check out movetoamend.org/lobby to learn about grassroots lobbying if you haven't done it before. Contact your representative. Let them know that they need to support the We the People Amendment, HJR 48, and come on as a co-sponsor. And your calls and potentially, virtual meetings that we can do now, even in COVID times, are so critical for helping us meet our goal. And honestly, every single other year, we've done a lot higher than our internal set goals, but 75 is that goal. And because of COVID, we are running behind. So you're listening to the Move to Amend Monthly Live Report. I'm Kaitlin Sopoci-Belknap, Move to Amend's National Director. Move to Amend is the campaign to pass the We the People Amendment to the U.S. Constitution to make clear that corporations don't have constitutional rights and to get big money out of politics. Ask me your questions at any point during this broadcast, even if you're listening to the recording. Just post your comments and I'll answer them at the end, or we'll follow up with you after the fact. And don't forget that you can help us spread the message and potentially win a t-shirt if you retweet or share the link to this recording using the hashtag #MoveToAmend. At the end, I will announce 2 winners from Facebook and Twitter who will win a t-shirt for helping us spread the word. Next up is our dispatch from the grassroots. Oh, before I do that, I got a text when I was saying our co-sponsors for the People's Movement Assembly. I left out by accident the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund. So I don't want to leave them out because we're really excited to finally have the opportunity to be working together with these folks who we really respect and who do local work, whereas we're doing, nationally focused work as Move to Amend. doing local work against corporate rule and specifically against corporate personhood and empowering communities to have control over their own destiny through challenging corporate personhood is very near to my heart because that is what I used to do before working for Move to Amend at Democracy Unlimited. So thank you so much, CELDEF, for joining us for the PMA, and I hope we can find other ways to continue to work together. So I want to give a shout out to Paynesville Move to Amend for their success putting issue 1 on the ballot. My scriptwriter forgot to say, in Ohio. Paynesville folks are sending a strong, bold message against corporate campaign contributions. Issue 1 was put on their local ballot after our Paynesville Move to Amend volunteers secured enough signatures. This is a group of citizens that are proclaiming that money is not speech and corporations are not people under the Constitution for the purpose of campaign finance, said member John Dean. All of these grassroots groups have chosen the resolution format on the local level to send a message to our state government. Ohio is not one of the states that has adopted this yet at the state level, and we'd like to see Ohio become the 21st state to get this on the list. So what he's speaking about is collecting ballot initiative signatures. Even in crazy 2020 COVID year, they collected enough signatures to put a measure on the ballot that they will be voting on next week, or that people are already voting on rather, to have Paynesville become one of dozens and dozens of communities in Ohio that have passed resolutions calling for the We the People Amendment, calling on their representatives in Congress and at the state level to support this campaign. And it's so important because this kind of grassroots work is what builds the critical mass of pressure against state and federal lawmakers to step up. So congratulations and thank you and good luck next week to the folks at Paynesville Move to Amend. 20 states have adopted similar declarations calling for a 28th Amendment to the Constitution intended to show support for limiting political contributions by corporations, unions, and super PACs. That's actually also a quote from John. Shout out also to Toledo, Ohio Move to Amend for pushing their city council to go ahead and hold their voter mandated Democracy Day. So one of the tactics that folks in Ohio have been using that goes beyond the resolutions, which are non-binding statements of support for the amendment, is to actually hold ordinances, to vote on ordinances that are law that require their city councils to hold what they call a Democracy Day, either annually or every other year, to assess the progress towards the passage of the We the People Amendment and also talk about implications of corporate rule and money and politics on their local community. And the Toledo City Council were totally dragging their feet, trying to avoid holding this meeting. In the end, they ended up putting it out there with like less than a day's notice that it was going to be happening. And our Toledo folks were able to scramble despite the efforts of the city council to kind of thwart the success of the day and make sure that they had speakers for public comment and to move the ball forward. So congratulations and thank you. And it just goes to show that the corruption and the desire to change this or the desire not to change the status quo is not something that is just held by our Congress members and those at the top, even at the local level. They're really failing to understand how this has real world implications and ramifications for people in communities. I mean, Toledo has a tremendous amount of environmental pollution as a result of corporate rule in their region. It affects their energy situation. And so way to go, Toledo Move to Amend folks, for holding your electeds accountable. Tuscaloosa, Alabama Move to Amend is working hard to secure organizational support for the We the People Amendment in the red state of Alabama. Great job on getting the endorsement of the Blue River Democrats in that region. Not only are our Alabama folks working tirelessly in solidarity with movements to secure living wages and expand voting rights, but they also continue to work diligently to push their senators, Doug Jones and Richard Shelby, to work with Move to Amend to introduce a companion bill in the Senate. And congratulations to We the People Miami County in Ohio Shout out to our Miami County Working Group and the Greater Dayton, Ohio affiliate members who are working together to secure pledges from their local candidates in support of the We the People Amendment. They secured 3 pledge to amend signatures from folks running for their county commission, Ohio legislature, and Ohio's 8th congressional district. Miami County folks can be sure to use this momentum towards their goal of passing a local resolution with their city council in Troy, Ohio. So keep up the great work, folks. And I want to take a minute to honor Dick Galloway, who passed away on September 28th after a long battle with cancer. Dick was the affiliate co-leader in Cincinnati, Ohio, along with his wife, Karen. Dick will be really missed. Our hearts go out to Karen and his loved ones, and we want to thank Dick for all the years of service he spent moving the campaign for the We the People Amendment forward. So that's it on campaign updates from Move to Amend, or rather, updates from the grassroots. But I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, so let me know. And don't forget to stay tuned to the end to see if you're one of our t-shirt winners. So let me know. Right now is the time. If you have any questions, shout them out. And I apologize for the fact that I was cutting in and out earlier. I hope you stayed with it. But my internet here is just not that great, and we're kind of doing the best we can. But I'm here to help and support my family, so there's not much I can do, and I can't really go to a coffee shop these days or some other public library or something like that. Let's see. Bill asks, how can a people's constitution be written and ratified without being hijacked by moneyed interests? That is what we need to figure out. So just to be clear, we're not proposing that we write this constitution tomorrow and plan that we can get it implemented, but rather to take a long and strategic look and assess how we're going to move this forward, how we're going to get the power that we need to move this forward. That's really what it all comes down to. We need to build the power that to amend the Constitution and move forward the We the People Amendment. We also need to build the power to claim our Constitution and make sure that the human rights that we need and the legal system is actually set up to protect our interests and the interests of everyday people instead of the interests of those with money. So how are we going to do it? I think that the way that we're going to do it was we're going to build a people's movement. And that movement is already happening in a number of different places and ways, whether it's people working on racial justice against the criminal injustice system, whether it's folks working on voting rights, whether it's people working on against ecological collapse. I mean, all of these movements, what we lack is power. We lack power over the people who are currently in charge or having our own people in charge. And so that's the movement we need to build. And from having that kind of power, we make small gains, but then the other side just overwhelms us. But nonetheless, that's still the work that we need to do. So it's not an easy answer. It's not going to be a quick fix. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. It's not a matter of like, if we just donate our $10 here or build this one organization there. This is about building a people's movement. But the reality is that movements in this country ended slavery. Movements in this country made clear that women are human beings. Movements in this country ended segregation. Movements in this country moved forward with civil rights. And so we need to build a people's movement that is broad and deep, that is intergenerational, that includes people from all parts of the country, that is interracial and doesn't allow race to divide and conquer in our movements. And that's the work that we need to do. And that's why we see it as, the work that we have been doing all along. And we have made a tremendous amount of progress. We not just Move to Amend. We, as a democracy movement in this country, is burgeoning and growing and taking itself more and more seriously. And we need to continue on. And from our perspective, that needs to include constitutional demands. We cannot just look to legislative fixes. We actually need to codify our demands in the Constitution so that we can check it off and move on to the next one. So I understand that the moneyed interests have most of the power. They are winning right now. It's true. And this next election that's coming up next week is an example of that, because the reality is no matter which of the presidential candidates that win, moneyed interests are gonna win. But we're taking a moment to hopefully kick out the authoritarian segment and then continue to move forward. And I take hope in the fact that, as I said, people have done this before, and also that young people are very clear that little tinkering at the margins, Band-Aid fixes are not good enough and are not going to work. And so both the electorate is shifting. The reality is that one of the things that we talked about this weekend at the PMA, the People's Movement Assembly, was how one side effect of COVID has been that young people who are less at risk, although not entirely not at risk, for severe health impacts as a result of COVID, have been able to step up and into leadership in ways that older generations were kind of holding on to and not allowing. And so that shift has started to happen. And I think that that is going to move us in the right direction as well, in terms of demanding this power and working together and fighting for this power, and not accepting, handouts as enough. And we can't afford to do that, as people are getting kicked out of their homes, as people are out of work, as, we're facing economic ruin. So many of us, we are in a position, I think, to help people see that it isn't because of who's been in power in terms of the individual people, it's the system. The system is corrupt. The system is corrupt because it was built to be corrupt in the first place. And so that's what we need to correct and fix. And it's not going to be easy. But if you came here for an easy fight, I'm sorry to say, but that's not our reality. But it doesn't mean that it isn't just as important to get it done. In fact, it makes it even more important. And I'm going to try and turn this light down a little bit because it's like a little bit glaring here as the sun is going down. I'm in it for future generations. I'm in it for animals that haven't been able to, they can't fight for themselves. So we need to do it for them. All right. So if you are interested, I'm seeing some comments of people saying they're interested in continuing in the Constitution. People that see it as a very strategic, critical step to help people understand how all of this is connected. And so we still see it as a linchpin issue and a strategic one to focus on. And so Move to Amend isn't going to back away from the We the People amendment, but we also we recognize that there are a whole lot of people. Hey, Dayton Move to Amend. There are a whole lot of people for whom a call to address money in politics and even corporate power isn't enough, isn't going to actually help them put food on the table, isn't going to help them with the fact that they're evicted, not for a long time. And they're really ready to fight for more. And so that's how we build this movement, is by making all these connections and making sure that we're addressing people's immediate needs, as well as building the legal foundation, the political foundation for power, so that these issues of economic inequality that are structural to the United States, but have been exacerbated and rebuilt is addressed. So I want to announce that is our on Twitter and is on Facebook. So send a direct message and Robert, let us know your address and you would like, and we'll get them in you. And I hope you tune in with me. First of all, don't forget, this Friday, tune in to learn all about what's going on the ground in Chile. And then next week after Election Day on Friday, then the next Move to Amend live report will be on November 18th. We're doing it a week earlier because of the harvest holiday. So tune in with me on November 18th. I want to thank Alfonso, as always, for producing this broadcast. And our Hell Yeah moment tonight is students leading the charge towards rewriting their constitution in Chile. What can we in the United States learn from this powerful people's movement and the work that they are doing, our neighbors to the south? So check it out. And you can always get in touch with us at movetoamend.org. And I hope if you're not already a supporter of Move to Amend, even if it's just, $5 a month, it makes a huge difference to help us continue this work. So I hope that you will join me, as I am a monthly donor. And if you can't do every single month, then even just a one-time support for our work is so important. We obviously don't get support from big corporations and or the government. And so we are people powered. And if you support the work that we're doing, then I hope you will help empower us with a little bit of your cash resources. So thanks so much. Have a great night, everyone. I hope you enjoy this clip from the uprising in Chile. Good night.
Nuestra valiente juventud, que fueron los que se atrevieron a saltar el torniquete.
Esto no es todo, o sea, el plebiscito es el comienzo de algo mucho más grande.
Constitucional. Constitucional. Constitucional.
Ahora lo que viene es escribir esta nueva constitución con letra de la mano del pueblo.
Chilenos y chilenas han expresado libremente su voluntad a través de las urnas, eligiendo la opción de una convención constituyente que por primera vez tendrá plena igualdad entre hombres y mujeres para poder acordar una nueva constitución para Chile. Hoy ha triunfado la ciudadanía y la democracia. Hoy ha prevalecido la unidad sobre la división y la paz sobre la violencia.
Corporations are not equal to money is not speech. Men, in fact, it's the root of all right. Now we have the right to be free. Corporations are not equal to money is not speech. Men, in fact, it's the root of all right. Now stand up and defend your democracy.
Have you recently read the Constitution? There seems to be some type of confusion. I thought it said the people were the institution and not the corporations that simply want to use them. The truth is currently a fusion of corporate loot and our government that is outright abusive. People need change. The state, it refuses. They're saying we're mistaken. Well, show us where the proof is. They control the media, movies, and the music and determine where supplies of the water and food live. We need a strategy. Here is a solution.